Listen, what's up, mi gente? Happy Thursday. It's my birthday. It's my birthday. And I am so happy to be celebrating today with Rosa Clemente, a Black Puerto Rican from the Bronx. And I cannot wait to tell you guys all about her. I'm sure some of you may know her because she's done some historic stuff. And she's quite amazing. She is a scholar, activista, and I just love her. She's like una hermana. She is a sister. I know it, and I cannot wait to get her on the show. Shout out to my twin brother, Javier Pedroza, because he's my twin, and it's his birthday today, too. So happy birthday to my twin. All right, guys, listen. We're going to make our signature drink for today's episode. And speaking of some historic stuff, today we're going to make the vice president, okay? Maybe adding another reason because wait till you get to the show because I'm not going to tell you just yet. But obviously one of the reasons we're celebrating is because of Kamala Harris and, you know, creating history. So lots to talk about Kamala. Good, the bad, the ugly, the beautiful, the how we're going to stay on top of them. A whole lot to talk about, right? But Vice Presidente, all right. So we're going to make this beautiful cocktail. You're going to take a block of ice, a little block of ice, and you're going to put it right into your glass, which is your old-fashioned glass. You are going to start with an ounce of triple sec. All right, some Mandarin, beautiful liqueur. Then you're going to have an ounce of Campari. Okay, you're gonna drop it right in there. And then you are going to flip that into 2 ounces of Bacardi. You heard that right. Sorry, y'all. My doors and winds, I can't. This is live TV. But again, black rum, Bacardi de Puerto Rico. You know what I mean? So 2 ounces of that right into your glass. Honey, Boricua soy. Take your spoon, your bar spoon, and right in your glass. All you have to do is stir, stir, stir. This is easy breezy to make, and it's delicious, and it's historic, and I'm all about it. So we're gonna garnish this with a mandarin peel, which I've already cut. Then we're just gonna squeeze that in there, get those citrus juices, go around the glass, and then you're just going to go ahead and twist, and you're going to make your little mandarin twist. And there you have it, sir. The vice president for you guys. Salud. Espérate un momentito. Oh, yeah. Perfect birthday cocktail. There's going to be a few more of these. Especially again when we talk to Rosa, cannot wait for you guys to meet her. So let's just get to it. Listen, hoy, 19th of November, is el Día del Descubrimiento de Puerto Rico, which means the day of the discovery of Puerto Rico. And I was born on that day. Lots to talk about. What does that mean, right? All right, guys, let's jump right in. Besitos, and I'll see you soon. Salud. Peace. Epa. Buenas noches, mi gente. Good evening, my people, and welcome back to Conciencias Con Cocktails with me, Javier Pedroza. Thank you to each and every one of you for tuning in today and every Thursday at 6 p.m. on Solivity.com, Solivity Latinx, also on Solivity Magazine's channel on YouTube. We're on Facebook Live, on Twitter. I mean, you name it, we're on it. If you're watching on Facebook, Twitter, or YouTube Live, comment. If any of you have any questions for my guests and I during the show, please let us know and we will try to answer them for you. Also, be sure to follow us on IG at Conciencias Con Cocktails. Familia, we're in the 3rd week of November and it's my birthday, y'all. It is mi cumpleaños. So I am so excited.
Birthday.
Thank you. I am so excited to, just celebrate today and what it means. One side note is that Puerto Rico today is celebrating El Día del Descubrimiento de Puerto Rico, right? The day that we discover that Christopher Columbus discovered Puerto Rico, which was already discovered. You know what I'm saying? So there's a lot to talk about there because I grew up in Puerto Rico. And for me, I always my birthday came around and I felt this proudness of like being born on the day that Puerto Rico was discovered, And now I know.
It was invaded.
It was, yes, that's my Rose that she's coming up. You're going to see her. But listen, I am so happy that we are where we are. Shout out to my twin brother, Javier Pedroza. I love you. You are my other half. We literally came into this world together, and I could not have asked for a better brother. I have an older brother, Nicole, my little sister. Los amo a todos. But, shout out to my twin brother because it's his birthday. It's his birthday. So shout out to my Ari. Now, we have a new president and vice president of these United States of ours. Mr. Joe Biden and Ms. Kamala Harris will be taking over the White House on January 20th, 2021. How? We don't know. Maybe with the military, perhaps. What an election year, though. I mean, the anxiety, right, in this country was unreal. Yeah. I have to say that, once the votes were in and we woke up the following day, I woke up so much lighter. Like there was something definitely that just lifted from the air. And it's definitely time for our nation to heal and unite and fight against the coronavirus right now, mi gente, because sadly, official U.S. death toll from COVID-19 has passed. 250,000 people have had the virus, and it's taking over from coast to coast with 172,000 infections and nearly 2,000 deaths reported on Wednesday alone. The U.S. hospitalization continues to break records with over 73,000 COVID-19 patients. The average daily death toll continues to climb in 33 states. This is not a conspiracy, my friends. Please wear your mask. Okay, quick shout out. I want to say veterans. Listen, you celebrated Veterans Day on November 11th. And I want to say happy Veterans Day. And thank you for all you do. A fun fact for you guys out there, Veterans Day is celebrated on November 11th because it was the day that World War I hostilities formally ended. And they ended at the 11th hour of the 11th day of the 11th month in the United States. So we want to again say thank you to all of our veterans who have served in the military, the U.S. Army, the Navy, the Marine Corps, the Army, the Air Force, the Coast Guards, right, in times of war and peace, and for keeping us safe. Mommy, papi, I love you. They're veterans of the U.S. Army, so thank you for your service. Mi primo, everybody in la familia, and everybody in the extended familia, right? Thank you so much. All right, mi gente, listen. I am so freaking excited today because we get to learn and highlight a force of Puerto Rican nature who has made significant contributions to our world in her own fabulous and inspiring ways. Rosa Clemente is a Black Puerto Rican scholar, activista, organizer, and writer whose incredible work focuses on the struggles facing Black Latinx, Latinos, Latinas, Hispanos, all of the population. With a strong sense of self, I think Rosa is such a guerrera, obviously coming from New York, from the Bronx. And listen, she ran for vice president of the 2008 United States elections for the Green Party. Did you know?
I knew.
When I was like doing my research, obviously, and I was like, so Cynthia McKinney became and Rosa Clemente become the first women of color ticket in U.S. history. Like, why don't we know this? You know what I'm saying? I mean, media, we're going to talk about that. But listen, Rosa is currently a doctoral student in the W.E.B. Du Bois Department of UMass, where her research focuses on national liberation struggles inside the U.S. with a specific focus on the Young Lords Party, big and the Black Panther Party, and Black and Brown liberation movements of the 60s and 70s. So again, I'm extremely excited to spend some time with my Black Puerto Rican sister, to soon be Doctora Clemente, okay? So, and you know what? You know these Clementes are coming and swinging, right? Because shout out to the one and only Mr. Roberto Clemente. Thank you for all of your teaching, sir. Thank you for the amazing baseball, and continue resting in power, because we got you, brother. We got you now. It's time for you to rest. It's time for others to pick up that fight and continue chugging along. Before we get to our spotlight segment, again, you got to say hello to the vice president. Again, in tribute to our VP, Mrs. Rosa Clemente, okay? But what you heard. Also, we're going to say Kamala Harris, felicidades. We're going to talk a little about you coming up, but I really think it's important to acknowledge firsts. And these two ladies, Cynthia McKinney and Rosa, mira, Madame Vice President in my eyes. Salud. I'm going to take a quick, it's rude. So with that, salud y mi amor, let's go to our spotlight stories, where we highlight our current events and trending news. The number one story right now, we're going to Nicaragua. Hurricane Iota. This is the 30th named storm of the 2020 hurricane season, and it has made landfall in Nicaragua, in nearly the same region that Hurricane Eta hit earlier this month. Listen, take a look at my sister, Shakira Barrera, from Glow, from many things that she has done, but right now we are focusing on Nicaragua. This is where she is from. Check out Shakira Barrera on CNN Internacional.
Yes, wow, this is a catastrophe. Nicaragua they can't catch a break. This is one of the biggest hurricanes that has ever hit and has ever been recorded, and two back-to-back, with Hurricane Eta less than 2 weeks ago and Hurricane Iota happening just hours ago. This is big for the country, and we need humanitarian aid ASAP.
Sad. We ask you to please reach out. You can directly reach out to Shakira on her Instagram. She will give you all the details necessary to help donate and help our brothers, sisters, and siblings, right? Especially our indigenous communities that we have in Nicaragua. We have to help. We owe them that. That is the least of the thing that we owe our people. So again, go to another site that you can go is Chavalo de Aquí y Allá for more information, again, because they have trusted sources where they're able to get the money safely into the communities that are necessary, right? Because that's very important, talking about a country in Central America, South America, depending on everywhere actually at these times. I mean, we have to help, but we also have to, unfortunately, be super smart about how we help. So these two ladies are doing the homework, right? This organization, Chavalo de Aquí y Allá, y Shakira Barrera as well is doing her thing. As always, una guerrera, another one, indigenous princess. Thank you, Shakira, for everything that you're doing. All right, next, our spotlight story highlights another Bronx native, Ms. Jennifer Lopez, as she wins the 2020 Icon People's Choice Award. Plus, J-Lo takes a heartfelt look back at all her accomplishments, and she addresses her Latinos. Take a look.
As a Latina and as a woman, we have to work twice as hard to get the opportunity. Sometimes my big dreams and my ambitions, it made the people around me nervous. People would say, "You're a dancer, you can't be an actress. You're an actress, what, you want to sing? You're an artist, you won't be taken seriously as a businesswoman." And it was like the more that they said I couldn't, the more that I knew that I had to. So now, here I stand, so very grateful, knowing that the true measure of my success is not in box office numbers or records sold, but from the love that I feel from all of you. And in inspiring, yes, I do, I feel it. And I love you so much. that the true measure is in inspiring girls of all ages and of all colors from all around the world to know that you can be anything you want and do as many things as you want, and to be proud of who you are no matter where you come from. I want them to know their dreams are limited only by their imagination and determination and their willingness to never give up. If I have touched you or them in any small way, then this is the greatest award that I could ever receive. I accept this award with great humility and gratitude, and with the hope that we can begin to heal as a country and stand together, united and proud and in harmony. Y a mi gente latina, a donde quiera que yo esté y a donde quiera que yo vaya, siempre los tengo presentes. Y es para mí un orgullo poder representar a los latinos de todas partes con todo mi corazón y con todo mi amor. Gracias, mi gente. Los quiero mucho y recuerden, la vida es un tango y hay que seguir bailando siempre. Thank you so much. I love you guys so much. Thank you for this. I love you, ladies.
Felicidades, Miss J-Lo. And girl, I hope I look like that when I'm 50 something. Okay, we're gonna start that on that right now. But listen, our last spotlight story comes from another Bronx native. I'm telling you, the Bronx is off the hook. Y'all be sleeping on the Bronx. I don't know why. Wake up. Wake up. You know why? Because her name is Rosa Clemente. Remember this name, because I gotta tell you, you gotta remember this name. This is how we learn. But she has created her own show, Disrupt the Chaos, on YouTube. And Rosa spoke to Eva Longoria about anti-Blackness, how to take accountability, and the need for Afro, Black, Latina, Latino, Latinx people to create our own media that is for us, by us, and represents us. Let's show you a little bit about that great conversation on Disrupt the Chaos.
Last week with the interview you did with Aaron over on MSNBC. So yeah, it's funny because I told you I don't ever really watch MSNBC and CNN, but I put it on and I was like, oh, Eva's on. Oh, cool. You know, and I heard everything you said. And then the moment you said, but the real heroines, I was oh no, this is not good.
Everyone, please say hello and toast to the amazing Rosa Alicia Clemente. Hi, Rosa.
Hola. Thank you.
Amor. Salud. How you doing?
Good. And I do Instagram Live because I know like a lot of younger folks. So it's not the most technically dope thing, but it reminds me of like when your neighbor got cable, everybody else got cable. I'm like, that's what we do.
Yes, that's how we do it. Besitos to everybody watching on Rosa's Instagram Live, and thank you for joining the conversation. Listen, what are you sipping over there? ¿Qué estás bebiendo?
A Guinness.
Nice, easy breezy. Salud, mi amor.
You know, always give props to the Irish people, like Puerto Ricans, still fighting for freedom.
That's right. Ain't that the truth? So listen, first I want to say thank you, mi amor, for taking the time to hang out with us and discuss these subjects that we must discuss. First, I want our viewers to know a bit about who is Rosa Alicia Clemente at heart, and tell us a little bit about your life in academia.
Well, like born in the Bronx, 1972, hip hop generation. A family, huge family, like many other of our peoples. Life in academia is interesting. I feel like I've been going to school for 40 years because I'm still not done with my PhD, which is hilarious because I'm like, I'm still in school and I'm 48. This has got to stop. So yeah, I became a student where I live now, Albany, New York, at the State University of New York at Albany. From there, I went to Cornell University, took like 12 years of working nonprofit, joining my organizations, really learning how to become a community organizer, activist. And then in 2010, 2012. Yeah. I went to UMass Amherst where I'm completing my dissertation. So for folks who don't know, we actually have a department where we're in classes for 3 years, which is long in a PhD program. People usually 2 years and 5 year, you should be done. Mm-hmm. Ours was 3 years, and it's the UMass Amherst, the Du Bois Department of Afro-American Studies was the first one to have a PhD program. So the legacy is really strong there. And I've been living now back here in Albany, New York, the last 5 years. So I've taught a little bit here and there. I did a year at Cal State LA under Dr. Melina Abdullah, brought me in Pan-African Studies and allowed me to create the first ever Afro-Latino identity and culture class within the Cal State system. So I loved it. And we were in a place where we're like, I got to finish this dissertation. Cali was more expensive than we thought, especially Los Angeles, and ended up being here now for 5 years, Albany, New York. And I'm going to get my dissertation done, and they're going to kick me out. So that's I've had a very beautiful experience in the academy. Personally, I know how difficult it is. I spend a lot of my time on the college circuit speaking to students at different universities, even like prep schools and all that kind of stuff. So for me, what SUNY Albany gave me is my entire history, a lot of anger that my family didn't tell me things. I didn't know things about not only Puerto Rico, about so many struggles in this country. So I always tell people, without SUNY Albany, and specifically the Black student group that I was part of and then president of SUBA, and a lot of the brothers and sisters schooling me, I wouldn't even be where I'm at now, So for me, the academy is something people use, but for me, it's always been about self-education, and how I identify politically and culturally really comes from those 4 years as an undergrad.
Amazing. And, I saw a few things where, because obviously I as soon as I saw you, shout out to Scott Nyland for a friend of mine who sent me the link of you tackling, the subject with Eva Longoria, which we'll get to. But as soon as I saw you, I was like, oh my God, this is like mi prima, like this is my sister. Like you look like so much at like my Afro Puerto Rican side, right? And I wonder, with you traveling in those circles, how was it? Because what did you get the riff of, like, are you Latina or are you Black or are you like, what is that? Did you have kind of the battles, that we have to face?
Yeah, I mean, I'm still having them, even as long as I've been identifying this way. But I mean, the very specific one that made me realize that this was always going to be an issue was when I did become president of SUBA. So in the 90s, especially on the East Coast, like if you were in college, there was a lot of political activity happening, especially in New York State. So Black student organization, Latino student organizations, Black fraternity sororities, Latino sororities and fraternities. It was just, nobody was not in a political organization. But I ended up choosing a SUBA because when first I had gone into the Fuerza Latina meeting, they were having it in Spanish. And they were like, if you don't speak Spanish, you kind of don't belong here, which I did. So, but I was just like, that's kind of crazy, that's whack. What
about the people in the diaspora? Yeah,
like that's whack. And I was also coming into my political being. So then a friend was like, go to SUBA, is for people of African descent. And I was like, oh, I can't be part of it. And they're like, no, you're of African descent. Like, read this book. And it's called The Destruction of Black Civilization by Chancellor Williams, which is it's like 500 pages. And I did read it, and I was just like, oh, okay. So SUBA became my cultural political home. But when I was elected president, one of the administrators at that time, they called it Minority Affairs office called me in, and I thought it was going to do like what some of the other administrators on campus did, because ASUBA is the biggest organization on campus with like over 1,000 active members, to say, okay, congratulations, and here's some committees you'll be appointed to as a student representative. And what it really was, he was like, yo, you need to pick a side. You can't be both. Are you going to be, and at that time they were still using the word Hispanic, you know, in the 90s. So he's like, are you going to be Hispanic or are you going to be Black? And I was like, both.
Right.
And I was like, deuces, I'm out. And I went to the head of the department, who's an African-American man. And then by then I had my mentor, her name is Dr. Gordon. And she was always like, this is going to happen to you the rest of your life.
Wow.
And, you know, and when I think back at that, I'm like, nah. And then I'm like, are we still having this discussion in 2020?
Yeah, and we are, you know, I know that, you know, as you know, Richie Torres is going in, and apparently they're asking him to choose whether to be part of the African-American, you know, coalition or the Latino.
He's actually not representative of our politics. You know, and that's where we're at this moment in this country. Is interesting. Richie Torres has a horrible policy agenda. I mean, so what he's doing is he's playing on his identity, right? So he's Afro-Boricua Afro-Boricua who's gay, openly gay. But he always sides with the police on everything that's been happening in New York City. He has sided against, he wanted that Amazon warehouse to open. Yeah, so see, this is a perfect example, is then what ends up happening is, you know, what we say, like all skin folk ain't kinfolk. Like, is Clarence Thomas really about Black people? Probably not. Right. Like, is Richie Torres definitely phenotypically Afro-Boricua? Yes, but he's anti-Black because of the policies he supports. The agendas he support. So as important as it is to have this cultural identity, you can't just have the cultural identity and then still be anti-Black, right? And that's the technology right now around understanding systems of oppression, because then you'll be like, no, a woman would never drop a bomb in Libya. Well, yeah, she did. Her name was Hillary Clinton when she was with the Department of State. You see what I'm saying? So what we're going to see in this incoming administration is diversity like we've never seen before. But doesn't mean the policies and agendas are going to be for our people.
Right. And that we need to be super careful about, like you're saying, like, because I think we get caught up in the whole, my God, the Afro-Latino, and he's the first openly Black and Afro-Latino. And for us, we're here jumping for joy. And now, you know, we have to go behind the curtain, basically, because if we don't do that, we don't get to know these things that you're, you know, expressing, because that is what we need to get to know. And with that, let's go about Eva, right? We're talking about Latinos, right? Yeah, Afro-Latinos. When I hear something like this about Richie Torres, you know, obviously it makes me think, oh my God, no, another Latino, another brother who hates himself, you know, without knowing who he is. But these are the things that kind of come to my mind. Now, Eva Longoria, and you had a great interview. First of all, congratulations. Because I think that was so clear in your interview. And I suggest that everybody goes to Disrupt the Chaos on YouTube and check out this interview, because I saw so much compassion. I saw so much respect. I saw so much apology, right? Like, you can tell that Eva feels really badly about this, and surrounding herself with Afro sisters, right? To kind of get these biases out, right? And one thing that she said on your interview that was really interesting to me was her always claiming que ella es mexicana and she is Mexican. And so she did that blood test, a DNA test, and it came back that she was mostly Spanish, understanding that she probably was, you know, los conquistadores. So I think that is extremely such an interesting point, because again, it goes back to us knowing our history and then taking a role to fix it, right? So when I watched it and I heard, but the real heroines are I was like, stop, no, abort, no, stop.
Abort mission.
Abort. Houston, we got a problem. We can't do this, you know. And again, I saw her on your interview and I thought she was extremely honest, and it was wonderful to see, you know, our sisters again take accountability for her actions. What for you were the key takeaways from your interview?
Well, that's funny because I hardly ever have MSNBC on, and I happen to have it on, and really the context of what she said is she's like, yes, and Black women, and the real heroines, Latinas. But if you listen, she does say right after, because she was confused how many Latino men could go for Trump. So she's like, thank God Latino women came out to kind of break on the Latino men, right? And I was like, oh no, this is not good. I was like, I gotta say something. But what I did first was, so I know Eva and America Ferrera, Kerry Washington, like around 2018, when Tarana Burke got invited to the Golden Globes, and there, Monica Jimenez, who is the founder of the Farm Workers Alliance, had written this letter. The Me Too thing was popping, all of that. And I got to know them that weekend because I was one of the 8 sisters that went to the Golden Globes. And it was after, less than 3 months after Hurricane Maria, and who brought me officially with Susan Sarandon, who I have a long-term kind of relationship with around her good work in politics in New York. So anyway, so I think it was like 6 months ago, America Ferrera, Eva Longoria, Carmen Perez, and Monica Jimenez founded She Se Puede, right? And I've done a couple things with them. So I was like, you know what? I'm gonna call Carmen first and let her know that I have to, you know, go on Instagram Live.
Right, and check my sister real quick.
And check her. But I also, when you watch it, I'm not coming at it like you were just like you're disposable now, or, you know,
you're canceled
right away. And as I'm finishing up the Instagram, she emails me like, can we talk? So then we talked for a while. I did a follow-up one and I was like, we need to do something together. Now, the next day we had a meeting with more other sisters, and Eva was 100. She was like, I called a couple of my Black sisters and they're like, nah, girl, you can't be saying that, you know? And what it really was that if it was not for African-American women, Biden and Harris would have lost. There's no discounting. You can look at other demographic data in different states, but African-American women, 93% who voted for Biden and Harris. So it was like, as much as I identify as a Black Puerto Rican, there is a specific experience of African-American women and darker skinned sisters.
Yes.
That I'm not gonna ever understand. But as a Puerto Rican, because we have this American citizenship, African Americans are like our closest brothers and sisters in terms of why we should always at least us be in solidarity with each other. I was like, yo, let's do the interview. And she was open. It wasn't like her PR person, nothing. Right. She made her statement. Some people didn't like it. And I watched the show, and a lot of the comments, I mean, obviously there were people like, it's this, I don't accept that apology. And, you know, that's up to the individual person watching. But part of it is too that this younger generation of activists and organizers have been talking about accountability. Yeah. And so what happens when somebody is accountable and does something restorative? That's what Eva did, right? She was like, I was wrong, this, that. Also, Eva has, ella tiene her master's in Chicano studies. Right. So she's also not just like, quote, an actress that doesn't understand politics. And I think too, that's why a lot of sisters that I know were like, nah, man, this has like, we need to stop this now, you know? So that's how that all came about. And we're going to be working on some things together. And I really do believe now in what does accountability look like? And then we got to keep it moving forward, because white supremacy is the source of all of this, you know?
Yes.
We have to be understanding and understand all the systemic stuff. It's not like it's gonna stop with a Biden and Harris administration. You know, but the veracity of the Trump administration has just been deadly for our people, period.
Yeah. Absolutely. And you know, the dangerous part of a Trump administration is what we just saw in the last 4 years, right? Like the fact that our brothers and sisters are being tackled, like just like, I mean, we can talk El Paso, we can talk about so many incidents that have happened against our folks that it's crazy. So yes, we won't expect for President, you know, Biden and Kamala Harris to come in and save the day. We have to stay on top of them because we know it's a new day, right? So it is time to now say, what are you going to do? I want to know from you, you know, since you ran for vice president, what would you do, right? In your first 100 days in office, what would Rosa be like, okay, this is what we need to do? What would be your advice to Biden and Kamala?
I mean, obviously, the first thing I would do was would ask for a mask mandate. You know, I don't know how that would work without having to have policing or militarization of that. So I would ask for that, but I'd also have people around me from our communities telling us what the best thing is to do. I would immediately pay people to stay home for the next 6 months periods. Everybody gets money on an EBT card. Everybody gets food on food stamps on an EBT card. Everybody has free access to medical and tests. I would go for virtual learning, not because that's where the cases are, but we know that young people can carry it and be asymptomatic. And I would cancel the rent for a year, period, and have the federal government pay for that. And then people will say, well, how does that happen? Well, we won't spend $1 trillion on war. That's how that happens. Or we can get Jeff Bezos to actually pay taxes. He's about to be a trillionaire who does not pay taxes.
Like, what is that?
Yeah, and also up the livable wage to where you work, where you live. Like $15 is not enough anywhere, but it's not enough like in New York City or LA. Right? So, and then it's like 2026. You're like, how are people living on $15 an hour? You still fall under the poverty line. So I would make it compare it to like the cost of living. You know, so if you're in New York City, you probably should be getting like $33, $34.
Correct.
An hour. And that's not making you super rich.
No, that's living day to day.
And I would, two things around mass incarceration. Anyone that's in jail or prison for any type of drug offense, an immediate release, but also working with communities so that people could re-enter society. And on a very personal level, free the remaining political prisoners and prisoners of war like Mumia Abu-Jamal and people who are 74 like Mutulu Shakur who've been in jail for their political beliefs. A lot of people might know Oscar Lopez Rivera, the Move 9. And for Puerto Rico, full a path to independence and a complete secession from United States colonialism. Although I would cancel the debt and put us into that place within the United Nations, but also reparations are due to Puerto Rican people too.
Yes, so, and I think people, as soon as they do their history, as soon as they understand what it is, they're going to be like, yep. Absolutely, because the history shows us that this USA has treated Puerto Ricans like the word. Like, I'm not even gonna say a word because it's just the treatment. It literally hurts. And Rosa and I have talked about the pain that comes from us knowing these stories, knowing that these things happen, right? That are facts. That hurts. We have to get through it. And now we need a government here in the US that reflects that, right? So I would be like, let's put Rosa in the cabinet for Biden, 100%, right? But that's, she's like, she's not in it. But who would you like to see? Would you like to see, for instance, like an Andrew Yang, Stacey Abrams, a part of his cabinet? And do you think that will help?
You know, I'm not a Democrat, so I'm in the Green Party, and I voted for the Green Party candidates this year. You know, honestly, I think who should be in those positions are community movement organizers that have track records. Like, give me a Patrice Cullors and a Lumumba Bandelli and a Jose Albino. You know, like there's so many incredible organizers and movement folks. Because I think what ends up happening with these cabinet positions, and it's already happening. See, Biden is so overcorrecting for Trump that he's wants to bring in Republicans like John Kasich, who was the governor of Ohio when Tamir Rice was murdered, who sat in a meeting with Tamir Rice's mother and said her son shouldn't have been at the park playing. Right. And this, see, so people forget these things that people have done because the maniac in office is so awful that you're like, give me anything.
Right.
But it shouldn't be that way. And let me say, when I said reparations in tandem, look, I'd be there like 10 days because I do everything executive order and bounce because they be like, she's got to go. Reparations for African-American people, reparations for the island of Puerto Rico from what the United States has extracted from us. So I don't know what that cabinet is going to look like. I mean, they got a couple people I see, but I think what we always have to remember, for me, freedom never comes out of a government or a policy. You know, that means that policy, you might like it, then you have to fight to keep it. You don't like it, then you want to fight to change it. You know, and there's the Movement for Black Lives has put out a huge policy agenda that encompasses all of us with all of our identities, as well as our identity as working people, because there's so much talk about the working class that it usually defaults to like white men. No, Black and brown people are the heart of the working class, but we're never in those conversations, you know, about working and working class and rights kind of thing. So we'll see. Look, you know, there was a lot of hope put in Obama, and Obama built that deportation machine that Trump took on a whole nother level, right? Like under Obama, he was called the deporter in chief. He deported the most people than any other president, including George Bush.
Yeah.
So,
but I think it goes back to your point of like we have such a terrible person in office separating kids that we forget that really the inventors of this were in the Obama administration. I mean, it has to be said, is real.
Yeah, and let me just say this thing, and then we could go to another question or another topic. But look, today in 24 hours, 2,000 people have died, which is double what it was last week of COVID. Hospitals are overrun. Who is dying 4 times more than any other population? Latino and African Americans. And we have a maniac in office who's in the basement tweeting out and has not been seen for days. Okay. I just told my husband, I'm like, yo, the minute he walks out, he needs to be arrested for mass murder, because that's what he's becoming now, or negligent homicide. How disgusting and how horrific. You're not even a human being. You are so throwing a temper tantrum that is impacting 20, 30, 40 million people, and you're allowed to keep doing that? Right. I was like, would they have allowed Obama to do what this? Well, we know not. The military would have already gone in there. I am so angry today because we can't see our families in one city, and then the next city is like, no, I ain't wearing a mask. Right. You're selfish. And that's what America is looking like, the ugly Americans who are selfish. Like I get that people want to go outside. We all get that.
We all want to.
We all want to do that. And we also know that people are going because they need to work, which is why we have to be immediately, Biden and Harris have to pay people to stay home.
Right.
That's the first thing, period. With whatever your salary was. It's been done in every country. But here and where else? Brazil, with his homie Bolsonaro, who's another white supremacist. You know?
Absolutely. And you know, I know that I'm hoping we'll see. I'm down to see him come down in military. I'm down to see him get thrown in jail because of the way that he has separated this country, the way that he has separated the world. I mean, we don't even have international relationships, and now he's threatening to bomb Iran. Like what? Like out of nowhere.
And people think it's North Korea. Like, really, don't fuck with Iran. They're not to be fucked with if you understand the geopolitics of the Middle East. And that's what he's doing. He's just like, oh, let me see. Can I get the nuclear codes? No, dude. Like, I want to know the person who has carry the football, they call it, right, who has the nuclear codes. He needs someone behind him to like hold him from giving
of color
bag at 3 a.m. in the morning when he's like, what should I do now? Sure, North Korea, why not?
That's where we're at.
That's where we're at.
That's insane. And yet 6 out of 10 white women voted for him. Can we talk about this? Because I haven't heard much about this. I hear how a lot of Black men voted for Trump this year. I'm hearing how Latino men are backing. I'm hearing all this. What I'm not hearing is how our white sisters voted 6 out of 10 voted for him. What do you say to that?
They did it in 2016. I say it's all your fault. And now I'm like, I already had low levels of trust with like white women. So every 10 I see, 6 of y'all voted for Trump. That's what you're telling me? That's what you're telling me?
And that's what the facts are telling us.
And the facts, right? And people should go to Democracy Now! And catch the 2 times that Juan Gonzalez, who's a co-host with Amy Goodman on Democracy Now!
He's amazing.
He broke down the numbers and he's like, what's up with not talking about the 54% of white women? What's up with that? So all we hear from the exit polls, isn't it amazing that the pollsters, all these white men still get their jobs? Every election they're wrong and because they don't talk to us, right? I'm like, at this point, like white women shouldn't be running shit either. Like
we're looking at them side eye.
Now you need some kind of, you need white women who are politically dope, like a Eve Ensler and I'm like, I don't know, Jane Fonda, like all of y'all need to get together and have a cleansing. Why would you vote against your own body?
Okay.
And
thank you, your own rights.
Like, stop it.
Like, what's going on here?
I don't worry about white men because I already see white men usually as suspect. Like now I'm going to be, when I do get to go out, like 10 white women, 6 of y'all voted for this.
Right. I want to come in and be like, okay, who did it? Which one of y'all did it?
Because it was too close. It should have never been this close anyway. This race should never have been.
It's not over, baby. Now we got to go to Georgia for the Senate. Like, what are we going to do to like not have another Mitch McConnell Obama situation?
Follow your folks right now. Follow Black Voters Matter, Latasha Brown and Cliff Albright, who with Stacey Abrams flipped Georgia. Like they could have flipped Florida if Biden and Harris went to talk to the Puerto Ricans in Florida.
The 1.1 mil.
Yeah, they focus on like the 3% Cubans who are still mad that Fidel
traumatized.
Yeah, and all of that. You're worried about like 3% where there's 1.5 million Puerto Ricans. Even that in Florida, 82% of Puerto Ricans voted for Biden. But it should have never been this close. And I'm not for trusting like white women right now.
Yeah, and again,
accountability.
I think that again, people have to understand that the truth always comes out to the surface, and now we have facts and numbers to back up everything. So we see you, like we see y'all. You know what I'm saying? So I'm like, oh my goodness, I can't wait to sit and talk to it. Now, what about familia, right? Like, because it's a little difficult, you know? And I think it's also because we're emotionally involved with them, right? We love our family but there are some Puerto Ricanos, there are some Mexicanos, there's everyone, right? Now we learned that we're not a voting bloc, that we are Latino voters. And what do you say to those folks that, for instance, in Puerto Rico, we know we have a lot of work to do, right? To become less, to become more tolerant and just opened the door to our Afro people. You know what I'm saying? The same thing in Colombia with our Afro-Colombianos, with the same thing in Mexico. I mean, they're not even represented in their census, the Afro-Mexicanos. Like, what is it that we have to do? Because we have a bit of work to do, but tell us a few ways to start being better in our own community for Black Latinos.
Yeah, so first, in the last Mexican census, it was the first time they put negro, and 1.7 million Mexicans checked that box. So that was the first time.
Wow.
Colombia has been good with, up until the last 3 or 4 years, around Afro and Indigenous Colombians, because they had rewritten their constitution in the 90s to give land back to Indigenous and Afro Colombians. Unfortunately, Indigenous Colombians are being murdered at a very high rate around environmental frontline justice work.
Yeah,
right?
and Anderson Arboleda, Afro-Colombiano, was killed. You know what I'm saying?
And then like in Brazil with Mari Franco, who was Afro-Brazilian lesbian from Rio de Janeiro. She was assassinated by Bolsonaro's bodyguards. But in Puerto Rico, actually, in the election that happened in Puerto Rico, it was the first election where progressives won. So they bucked the two parties, even though there's three parties, they bucked two of them, and ended up this session, there's the first ever Black lesbian Puerto Rican that's on, along with some younger folks. So what happened in Puerto Rico is actually, we're more advanced now in that stage. After Hurricane Maria, I think the big thing was always in Puerto Rico, you know, especially older people would be like, well, what would we do without the US government? Well, we did exactly what we did, rebuild and do everything for ourselves. That changed the consciousness of Puerto Ricans in like a week, right?
Right.
And then it went to self-aid, self-determination, mutual aid. And within that, you begin to also see an embrace of younger Afro-Black Puerto Ricans, Boricuas, as well as an emerging trans, queer, LGBTQ community that was not going to be silent. So this goes all the way to why Jose Joe had to resign. I went there to cover those protests. I had never in my life been to Puerto Rico and felt this sense of solidarity and unity on one goal. This dude has to go, and then the one after has to go, and then now independence, and we're taking this over. And so for me, I had been there when Vieques in 2003 covered when the Navy led Vieques, and I had such a sense of like, oh my God, my people. But then being there 2 summers ago, I was like, we had the right to independence and self-determination. We're doing it for ourselves. So Puerto Rico, to me, can also be an example of the first society that is completely running on renewable energy. There is no need to build an electrical grid on an island, period. Right. And those things are happening. And there's a lot of young people that are taking over land or buying plots of land and building farms and rebuilding schools. That's happening every day in Puerto Rico. It's beautiful.
Do you ever see yourself going back to Puerto Rico?
Yeah, definitely. I'm not living the rest of my life here. No.
Okay, good to know. We might be neighbors.
Well, my mom and dad are like, we need this pandemic to be over. We need to, like, they're like, we are ready for the 100% retirement now. They're like,
100 is right, and that beautiful, gorgeous sun that we get in Puerto Rico. But listen, we are going to be leaving soon, but I want to first, before we go, let's talk about a little bit about some books that we can like give our folks. You know, I know that right now I'm in between 2 books. One is, and I'm sure you've read all of these books because you're amazing and you're so preparing. That's crazy. But for me as a Puerto Rican, I have to say The War Against All Puerto Ricans.
Oh yeah.
Holy mama. Like, wow. And you know, I was raised in Puerto Rico, right? And I'm like, why is it that we never learned about their slaves? Why is it that, you know, first of all, like I said, today is el Día del Descubrimiento de Puerto Rico. It's the day that Puerto Rico was discovered. And again, we had our own civilizations of Taínos already living there. So it's for me, that's definitely one of the books that people have to read. And the other book that I'm again is The African American Latinx History of the United States by Paul Ortiz.
Yeah.
Because wow, and Haiti and all that beautiful. What are you reading?
And The War Against All Puerto Ricans is going to be the best one that anybody reads to understand the assassination, colonization, everything. And that's by Nelson Dennis. Right now, because it's right here next to me for my dissertation. Let me see. I'm gonna find it. I'm coming back, everybody.
I love it. This is what we got to do. We got to get the information out. You know what I'm saying? And that's why I was so happy to have you today.
Yeah, no, first, this is one of our mentors. We call her like the godmother of everything Afro-Boricua or African descendant, Dr. Maita Moreno Vega, the author of
I watched her TED Talk. Amazing.
Everybody watch her TED Talk. She is now in Loíza, Puerto Rico. She was going to retire, and now she has started 2 new organizations because that's what Maita Vega does. And if you're in New York City, East 100, 125th Street, the Caribbean Cultural Center, Maita founded that. She's the only Latina woman in the country to have an institution that she built from the bottom that still exists. The Young Lords, this is probably the most comprehensive history. This is Dr. Johanna Fernandez, who's Afro-Dominicana and is at Baruch College in New York. This is probably the most, there's been little memoirs in this, but this one gives you the whole history. And then on the Afro-Latino tip, I tell people just start with the Afro-Latino readers are better because it's 8 different topics, short poems to long essays. And then he is truly the godfather of this type of work. Arturo Schomburg. Again, if you live in New York City, 125th Street, everybody thinks Schomburg is German. He was a Black Puerto Rican that was exiled for Puerto Rico for being an independista. And then when he came here, he became a collector of just anything and everything Black. He believed that his poem, his essay, The Negro Digs Up His Past, he was comrades with Elaine Locke, everybody in the Harlem Renaissance, and also Marcus Garvey. Yeah. And he would also end up being a teacher to one of our contemporaries that has passed away. His name was Dr. John Henry Clark. So this for me is like some of the foundational stuff. And I encourage people really like, I've been so encouraged so happy the last 2 years to see just really a lot of like Black Afro-Latina women being like, yeah, we're not in the background anymore. Like I tell people, look for Loida Limbal, an amazing documentarian. She just made Through the Night about domestic workers. Maita Vega, Claudia de la Cruz. I mean, there's so many amazing Afro-Latina, Black Latina women who are no longer going to be silent, men too. But it's been mostly women or queer. As always,
girl.
I follow a lot of the younger people, and I'm just glad that I've been able to see where this embrace is happening, not only in the community, but I mean, my daughter, right? She's about to be 16. She's a Black Puerto Rican with an Afro, and she's like known who she was from the day she was born. And I know we got to wrap up, but I think this is, people always go, why? Do you always have to say it? This is why. When I gave birth to my daughter in Brooklyn, they come in about 2 hours to have you fill out the birth certificate. And they had already checked Hispanic. And I was like, yeah, nah, I need a new one. My husband's like, you just had a baby. He's like, my mom's like, really, Rosie, ahora?
Yes, mami, ahora en este momento.
I was like, you know why? Because this is where it starts.
Right.
This is right. So I was like, I'm gonna need that back. And she was like, okay. And I was like, oh, okay. So I put other. And she's like, can it just be Hispanic? I said, no, it's other, and it's called Black Puerto Rican. We don't have, how do I file that? Like you file everyone else.
Okay.
Or there wouldn't be an other. Like, stop this bullshit, you know? And I just remember everybody who was with me was like, Rosa. And I was like, no, that's where it starts. You know how many of our people have been racialized as white, like our parents and grandparents who were Black? And mira, Javier, you said the last thing about the family thing. I don't talk to anybody in my family who rolls with Trump. I know who they are. And I've been like, you're denied entry into the family house because you rolling with a Confederate flag and a Puerto Rican tattoo talking about Trump. Yeah, I'm like, family for me is my movement. I got blood family that I'm with, but that family, you know why? Because it's mentally unhealthy. It's mentally unhealthy for us always have to be like, oh, well, nobody talk about Javier being gay, just déjalo. And nobody talk about Abuela being black, déjala. No, because you're erasing our family. And we cannot allow it. To me, it's 2020. You rolling with a white supremacist, I won't be at that family reunion, homie. I won't be there.
And I don't think people understand why we're, especially like when we talk about the Puerto Rican experience, right? And why we're so proud. I mean, I'm looking at you, the beautiful earrings with our flags, honey. Why? Because they took our flags away. We could not, it was illegal for us to represent our flag for freaking decades. Like, that's why you see us and we're like, we're Puerto Rican. You see our flags and we're so proud because y'all took it away from us.
And what Javier is saying, everybody on Instagram, is called, it was a law and people were getting arrested. Yes. Part of it too is that the reason the Cuban flag mirrors us, because we were both fighting for independence at the same time. So Ramon Betances came up with the idea to have the flag similarly look. Cuba did win their independence. We were free for 11 months and then the United States invaded us. So yeah, as Boricuas, they wanted to erase us. And I think they still want us to be erased as Black and brown people. So I'm like, I'm all for everybody's flags. Let's represent as much as we want because they want to take this away from us. And white supremacy is kind of shocked that we are all alive. I mean, you know, the extermination against indigenous people, exploitation of workers, all of this, they were probably white supremacists. The reason they're bugging out right now is they're starting to see like we are the majority of this country, right? And inherently, they are like, they're taking that away, but that's going to be taken away because until this country gives indigenous people back their land, literally apologizes for slavery and gives African-American reparations, nothing will ever be right.
And that is 100,000% correct, because how do you move on from 400 years of slavery without being able to build on your wealth, without, when you even tried, your shit was burnt to the ground. I mean, now we know. This is where I go back, and that's why I've with my Rosa, because we go about education and we go about facts. And if you do the homework, I'm sure that you will think in this way, because it's only human to understand what has happened. Like Dominican Republic and Haiti, learn that history, learn what Trujillo did to these folks to mess them up. Till today, they're fighting against each other. And there is nothing but an imaginary line saying that there's two countries in one island. We gotta wake up. Mi amor, I love you so much. I cannot wait to continue to hang out and get to know you more, because I know that the work begins with goddesses and reinas like you. You know, so I'm here to tell you whatever you need, whenever you need it, because that is what we are supposed to do as lighter Latinos for our Afro community. Punto. I don't need to take from you. I'm here to give you. And if we understand that that needs to be the collective experience for our Afro people and all of our indigenous folks, that could be the start of a beautiful, beautiful, beautiful world for us. So again, Rosa Clemente, thank you so much for joining us today and for using your life, your brain, not only to create opportunities, but also for empowering every human being to their best and for creating the social change that you're creating, Rosa. Porque te lo digo, de parte de todos nosotros, we need you. 100%. So don't give up. I want people to go to Disrupt the Chaos and back my girl up, because this is what we need to see across every channel. CNN, Univision, Telemundo, Europa, Asia, whatever you want, we need to be there because we are part of this. So Rosita, mi amor, thank you so much.
Well, thank you. Thank you. And if I ever run again, you could be my hype brother.
What? Every single one. I will be right there.
Like I'd be like, every day I could just put you on an alarm clock. Like, let's go.
With a wind machine.
Yeah. Oh yeah. And thank you to everybody on your team. Thank you, Madeline. Thank you, Brian, everybody that watched. And I am now part of the family, so bring me on anytime. Gracias para todo. Thank you.
Thank you, my love. All right, everyone out there, again, thank you so much for watching, guys. We will see you next week. Please wear a mask. And now we're going to leave you with our friend of the show, Omar Perez-Then, who is a singer, Dominicano, Afro-Latino. He is the singer of our theme song here at Conciencias, and he just dropped his next album. We have to support our Latinos, brothers, sisters, siblings, and this is how we do it. Rosa said we have to create our own, for our own, by us, right? So this is it. This is what we're doing. So folks, enjoy the video Palmera from my friend Omar Perez-Then. Again, thank you. And remember to stay curious, be gorgeous, y amable. Ciao, folks.
Tú eres mi luz.